news that he will stay on as executive producer of Celebrity Apprentice even while in the White House. Joining us now to talk about all of this is senior advisor to the president-elect Kellyanne Conway. Hi, Kellyanne.
Hi, good morning, Alisyn.
Nice to see you. Why is Mr. Trump going to stay on as executive producer of The Apprentice?
Well, he's a very transparent guy. Everyone can see what he's doing. And the fact is that he is conferring with all types of experts to tell him what he is allowed to do and not to do as the President of the United States. And if this is one of the approved activities, then perhaps he'll consider staying on.
You know, and I'm not saying that it's not allowed. I'm just saying that every hour he devotes to Celebrity Apprentice is an hour that he's not devoting to fill in the blank, jobs, national security, whatever.
Well, okay, but were we so concerned about the hours and hours and hours spent on the golf course of the current president? I mean, presidents have a right to do things in their spare time or their leisure time. I mean, nobody objects to that, and
well,
there's been a lot of time
Everybody
spent.
objected to that. I mean, I heard you object to Mr. Obama playing golf. Will Mr. Trump not be playing golf for the next 4 years?
Well, maybe he will be. It certainly seems like there's a lot of time to do it based on recent precedent while you're president of the United States. But the point is the same, that these, whether it's President Obama or President Donald Trump, the idea that these men are going to be all work and nothing else all the time, it's just unrealistic because it's never happened in our lifetimes. But you know, I know Donald Trump very well, and I can tell you that work is his work and work is his hobby. His preferred time is with his family, but it's followed very closely behind with work. He just, it's a mystery to all of us when he even sleeps. I'm sure he's watching us right now, and he's just all high energy, high octane, high activity. And so again, if the powers that be, if the lawyers and the protocol officers say that he can do that, then he probably is going to say, why not?
He is a multitasker. That is true, and we all know that. But will he be collecting a salary?
Doubtful. I think he's actually already said he will not keep the salary for President of the United States, which I believe is about $400,000.
No, I mean for Celebrity Apprentice, will he be making a profit off it somehow with royalties or a salary?
I haven't discussed that with him directly. However, there are many options. He could do what he's going to do with his White House salary with the Celebrity Apprentice, which is donated to charity or decline to take it. Again, all of that will be decided. I don't think it's as relevant an issue, respectfully, as the amazing cabinet he's putting together and the fact that a majority of Americans now have a favorable opinion toward him, his highest number ever, that a majority of Americans say, over 60% say they approve of his actions with Carrier last week, making good on a centerpiece of his campaign to keep jobs right here in the U.S. of A. rather than have them shipped off to Mexico. You saw real tripartisan support for him in that regard, Alisyn. 40% of Democrats, over 50% of independents, and or 50 or 60% of independents, and over 80% of Republicans. So that's remarkable, and I think that's what he's focused on these days.
That was a real feather in his cap. Does it matter that the numbers, it turns out, were not as high as he said? It's not 1,100 jobs, it's 800.
No, what matters is that, well, I think it matters to election deniers, and there seem to be many of them.
No, I mean to the people
who want
jobs,
to see.
I mean, look, you heard the labor union leader who said that there were people who were misled, who thought that their jobs were going to be staying because of the higher number, but then it turned out that they weren't.
Well, they should talk to their employer first and foremost. But secondly, I've talked to some of those Carrier employees directly. We don't care if they vote, for whom they voted, what their politics are. We care that they were able to keep their jobs here. And you know, I think those who just want to continue to criticize Donald Trump and keep the permanent campaign going will always try to undercut his successes and his victories. It is amazing. I mean, look, this could have been done. The current president could have done this same deal with Carrier, but it took the president-elect, before he's even sworn in, to make good on the centerpiece of his campaign and to keep those people in their jobs. It's a huge boon. In a non-swing state, by the way, I think they carried Indiana by 10 points. So people are critical of, he's only saying thank you in the states he won. Is he going to go to states where he didn't win? Well, of course, he'll be present. He'll be very active out there with the people. And I just thought last week with Carrier was a great example of how this man, a non-politician who goes to Washington owing nobody anything, will execute, will deliver, is about accountability and results the way he's been his entire brilliant career.
Okay, let's talk about the cabinet. So, Secretary of State, who will it be?
That's up to Donald Trump, the president-elect, but obviously he's been broadening the search in incredibly diverse group of individuals by their background and their experience. You have Governor Romney, Mayor Giuliani, General David Petraeus, who nobody can argue knows a lot about the world and would be effective at Foggy Bottom. You have Senator Bob Corker, who's the head of the Foreign Relations Committee, would face easy confirmation, people project. And then, of course, in recent days, he's been meeting with Ambassador John Bolton, Congressman Robacker, and more recently, Rex Tillerson from Exxon, and yesterday, Alan Mullally from Ford. These two men are captains of industry who already deal with the developing country. In the case of Mr. Tillerson, has dealings with Russia and China, Yemen, and of course, most of the world. So it's Exxon. It's a fascinating way of approaching such an incredibly important job, and it's very Donald Trump to have number of people in, not make it a cage match between two people played out on cable TV. That would be ridiculous. It's a Secretary of State position. But instead, having that wide berth, taking his time, and recognizing that we're way ahead of schedule with our cabinet appointees.
Agreed.
When you compare us to past administrations, Republican and Democrat.
And it's been entertaining and interesting to watch. Let's talk about Mitt Romney. You have not made it a secret that he would not be your first choice, but is he still the top contender?
Well, it's not my choice at all. I'm not the president-elect, but Donald Trump, the president-elect, gave me permission to express publicly what I had expressed privately. I would never say anything that was otherwise, and I'm in his service here. And the fact is that I just was reflecting what I saw in the grassroots. I had not seen blowback like that in quite a while about anything.
And I do want to ask you about that blowback. Just hold on one second, Kellyanne. Tell me about that. Are you still seeing blowback to the possibility of Mitt Romney being chosen?
Yes, and the reason is it has a lot to do with the disloyalty and what he said in those remarks. Obviously, Donald Trump has extended an olive branch because that's how he is. He said on election night, or in those wee hours of that Wednesday morning, Alisyn, that he would be president to all Americans, even those who didn't support him. That may or may not include Governor Romney, and that he would, and he's obviously been meeting with many different people who were part of the Never Trump movement, people who are from the other side of the aisle. Senator Joe Manchin will be here today, Democrat from West Virginia. He's met with Tulsi Gabbard, Congresswoman from Hawaii. He's obviously gone, the day after being elected, he met with President Obama. They've talked since several times.
But for Secretary of
people
State,
like Valerie Jarrett being very, very helpful to people like me, yes?
Yeah, for Secretary of State, do you think that Mitt Romney is still a top contender, yes or no?
He's definitely in the mix. There are several top contenders, and Governor Romney is in there as well. And it just tells you something about Donald Trump. He is willing to take into account the background, the experience, the resumes, the vision of each of these men who are being considered Alisyn. They're very different people. And he also, but I think everybody also needs to appreciate and understand, if not assimilate, that you're in the service of Donald Trump. He'll be president of the United States. He'll be commander-in-chief. And it's the Trump doctrine worldwide that people should execute on. So I think all of his cabinet needs to understand that, what his view is on this issue or that issue in the different agencies. And that, of course, includes, if not begins with, Secretary of State.
And very quickly, I only have 2 seconds. Will we hear an announcement next week?
On Secretary of State, it's possible. It doesn't need to be rushed through. We're way ahead of where anybody's ever been. President Obama had 4 weeks before he announced his first cabinet pick, and it was the Secretary of the Treasury, not the Secretary of State, Tim Geithner. And so we feel really good. They've met, the President-elect and Vice President-elect have met with more than 85 people, some of whom will serve in his administration, all of whom love the country and wanted to offer their advice, counsel, and vision for the nation, their background and experiences. And they've also talked to over 50 heads of state now, and that list continues to expand as well. So high energy, high activity, a lot of work going up here in the tower in between him going out on his Thank You America tour. It's really exciting times. I think you could see an announcement next week, but only one man is responsible for that, and it's the president-elect, and we'll all respect his decision.
Got it. Kellyanne Conway, thank you.
Thank you.
Chris.
It's interesting. PolitiFact says President Obama has actually taken less official vacation days than any modern president. Look it up for yourself. Despite all the threats about this...